Admiral Vextar's four eyes gleamed under the blue light of the massive holographic display that dominated the Empire's War Council chamber. The ancient room had witnessed the planning of 1,000 conquests, its crystalline walls bearing the marks of countless species that had fallen before Imperial might. Today it would witness the planning of what the Empire believed would be their easiest victory yet. "Behold, Sol 3, Vextar announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had personally overseen the subjugation of 17 star systems. The hologram shifted, showing a small blue world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. "Our scouts have confirmed what we suspected. These creatures have barely crawled out of their own gravity well." Commander Nal Thek, his scarred exoskeleton, telling the story of battles across the Outer Rim, shifted his massive frame forward. His species, the Kethvar, were natural warriors, and the Empire had used them to crush resistance on dozens of worlds. "Admiral, their vessels are pathetic. Crude fusion drives, primitive kinetic weapons, energy shields that wouldn't stop a child's toy blaster. I've seen mining equipment with better defensive capabilities." Around the circular chamber, other commanders nodded in agreement. General Kulneth of the 3rd Battle Fleet examined his tactical display with barely concealed boredom. "Their largest warship mass is less than one of our escort frigates. 200 years ago, my people built better ships using stone tools." Vextar manipulated the hologram, zooming in on human vessels caught by long-range reconnaissance drones. The ships looked crude and angular, lacking the elegant curves and energy fields that mark truly advanced civilizations. Intelligence reports indicate they've had faster-than-light travel for less than 50 of their solar cycles. Most of their population still lives on their homeworld. They have some scattered colonies, a few mining operations in their outer system, but nothing that suggests military sophistication. Sub-Commander Yexathara, the Empire's leading xenobiologist, activated her own display. The species appears to be carbon-based, bipedal, remarkably similar to several primitive races we've encountered. Average lifespan of roughly 80 standard years, single heart. Relatively fragile bone structure. They require specific atmospheric conditions and appear to have significant psychological limitations. Our Psychological Warfare Division expects immediate surrender once they witness our superior technology. Commander Korvesh, who would lead the subjugation force, studied the tactical projections with professional interest. He was younger than the other commanders, but had earned his position through a string of efficient conquests in the inner sectors. 200 vessels should be more than adequate, perhaps excessive, but Fleet Command wants this system secured quickly. "We have more important campaigns awaiting our attention in the Andromeda sector." The hologram shifted again, showing the Empire's standard subjugation formation, massive dreadnoughts at the center, surrounded by layers of cruisers and destroyers, with fighter squadrons providing screening coverage. It was a formation that had broken the will of countless species across the galaxy. "The operation should conclude within one solar rotation," Vextar declared. "Standard Protocol 7, demonstrate superior firepower, broadcast surrender terms, occupy key installations. These humans will join the Empire as a client species, providing raw materials and basic labor. Their primitive nature actually makes them ideal for simple tasks." Light years away, in a sterile monitoring station orbiting Neptune, Admiral Lee Hyun-woo stared at readings that made his blood run cold. He was a veteran of the Mars Independence War and the Europa mining conflicts, but nothing in his experience had prepared him for this moment. The alien fleet approaching their system was unlike anything in human military databases. Captain Park Jin-ho, his communications officer, looked up from his console with barely controlled fear. "Sir, we're tracking at least 200 distinct contacts. Energy signatures are off the charts. Some of those ships are kilometers long. Our entire combined fleet couldn't match the firepower of their smallest vessels." Hyun-woo nodded slowly, his mind racing through tactical possibilities. Earth's defenses were impressive by human standards: orbital weapons platforms, a fleet of destroyers and cruisers, defensive installations throughout the solar system. But against this approaching armada, they seemed woefully inadequate. "Get me a connection to Terra Command," he ordered. "Full encryption, priority alpha." Then contact every human installation from Mercury to Pluto. If we're going to die, we're going to make them work for it." The alien broadcast came hours later, transmitted in broken, poorly translated English, Mandarin, and Spanish. The message was simple and arrogant: surrender unconditionally, accept imperial rule, or face complete annihilation. The translation software had clearly struggled with human languages, producing awkward phrases that might have been amusing under different circumstances. In the United Earth Council chambers, President Kim Min-seo listened to the ultimatum with growing anger. Around her, representatives from every human colony and station waited for her response. The choice was stark: bow to an alien empire or fight against impossible odds. "Transmit our response on all frequencies," she commanded. "Let them hear it in every human language, so there's no possibility of misunderstanding." The reply that went out to the approaching Imperial fleet was brief, clear, and utterly human. "No. Come and take it." Admiral Vextar received the transmission with genuine surprise. In 3 centuries of conquest, no species had ever rejected the Empire's generous offer of client status without at least attempting negotiation. These humans were either incredibly brave or impossibly stupid. He was about to discover they were both. Commander Corvesh stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the tactical display with the confidence of someone who had conquered 12 star systems. His sleek vessel, over 2 kilometers of polished metal and energy fields, led the Imperial formation toward the human asteroid belt. The plan was simple and had worked countless times before: destroy a few civilian targets, demonstrate overwhelming power, and watch the primitives beg for mercy. "Begin demonstration bombardment," he ordered, his voice carrying across the bridge where dozens of alien crew members worked at their stations. "Target the largest mining facility. Make it spectacular. The ship's main plasma cannons, weapons that could crack a moon in half, charged with a sound like thunder. Brilliant green energy lanced across space toward Mining Station Series 7, where 300 human miners had been extracting precious metals for the past decade. Corvish expected to see the station vaporize instantly, sending a clear message to the rest of humanity about the futility of resistance. Instead, something impossible happened. The mining station's massive ore processing arms swiveled toward the incoming plasma blast. 100-ton chunks of raw iron and nickel, meant for transport ships, suddenly accelerated at incredible speeds directly into the path of the energy beam. The plasma struck the improvised projectiles and scattered. Most of its power dissipated harmlessly into space. "What in the void was that?" Corvesh demanded, his mandibles clicking in confusion. Before anyone could answer, alarms began screaming throughout the Imperial fleet. Sub-Commander Yultan, his tactical officer, stared at his displays in disbelief. "Sir, we're detecting massive acceleration from multiple civilian vessels. They're coming straight at us." On the main screen, Corvesh watched as human ore haulers, massive ships designed to carry raw materials between planets, suddenly ignited their engines and began accelerating toward his fleet. But these weren't evacuation attempts. Each ship had been packed with every explosive the miners could find. Fusion charges, mining explosives, even crude chemical bombs filled their cargo holds. The first hauler, piloted by a grizzled asteroid miner named Park Dong-woo, broadcast a message on all frequencies as his ship picked up speed. "Imperial scum, this is the lucky strike. You want our rocks? Come and get them." His ship, moving at over 50,000 kilometers per hour, slammed into the destroyer Night's Edge with the force of a small asteroid. Both vessels vanished in a ball of nuclear fire. "Impossible!" Sub-Commander Yultan stared at his readings. As more explosions lit up the darkness, "They're using civilian vessels as projectile weapons. Their own people are committing suicide to attack us." The asteroid belt erupted into chaos. Mining stations that had seemed defenseless suddenly revealed hidden weapons. Processing equipment became missile launchers, firing chunks of metal at incredible speeds. Ore refineries transformed into improvised railguns, using their magnetic fields to accelerate projectiles. Even the tiny maintenance pods, normally used for equipment repair, became kamikaze fighters. Captain Lee Sang-ho, commanding a small mining vessel called the Seoul Express, watched his fuel gauges drop towards zero as he pushed his engines beyond their safety limits. His ship, barely 50 meters long, was accelerating toward an Imperial cruiser 100 times his size. "This is for my daughter on Earth," he transmitted as his vessel struck the alien ship's shield generators. The impact was tiny by Imperial standards, but it created a small gap in their defenses, a gap that 3 more human ships immediately exploited. On Europa Station, Captain Kim So-young stood in the command center, watching her screens fill with chaos. Europa, Jupiter's ice moon, housed 50,000 colonists and served as humanity's primary water source. The station's massive ice mining equipment, designed to extract and process frozen water, was never meant to be a weapon. But So-young had spent the last 6 hours turning it into one. "All civilian ships, this is Europa Control," she broadcast as Imperial fighters swept toward her position. "Use the ice fields for cover and target their smaller vessels. The enemy ships can't maneuver well in the debris fields. Make every shot count. The ice processing lasers, normally used to cut through kilometer-thick glaciers, swiveled toward the approaching alien fighters. These weren't military-grade weapons, but they packed enough power to slice through ice and rock. When the beams struck the Imperial fighters, the results were devastating. The alien pilots, trained for combat against other military vessels, had never faced industrial equipment used as improvised weapons. Civilian freighters, their cargo holds emptied and filled with colonists fleeing deeper into the solar system, suddenly reversed course and began ramming runs against Imperial escorts. The freighter captain Yoon Jae-min, transporting families from Ganymede, watched his scanner show an Imperial destroyer moving to intercept the evacuation ships. Without hesitation, he turned his vessel around and activated his emergency boosters. "Tell my wife I love her," he transmitted to the evacuation fleet as his ship accelerated toward the destroyer. The impact barely scratched the alien vessel's hull, but it bought precious minutes for the civilian ships to escape. On Mars, Colonel Choi Min-ho stood in the command bunker, watching reinforcements pour in from the outer colonies. Each ship was different. Some were military vessels from the Outer System Patrol. Others were converted cargo haulers, mining ships, even luxury yachts whose wealthy owners had donated them to the war effort. The vessels looked like a junkyard fleet compared to the sleek Imperial warships, but they all carried crews willing to die rather than surrender. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Kim Hae-jin from the communication station, "we're receiving transmission. From the belt. The miners are holding their positions despite massive casualties. They're actually slowing down the Imperial advance." The tactical display showed something that defied military logic. The human defenders weren't retreating in the face of superior firepower. Instead, they were throwing everything they had at the enemy, turning mining equipment into weapons, civilian ships into missiles, and space stations into fortresses. Each human loss cost the Empire precious time and resources. By the end of the first day, Commander Corvesh stared at casualty reports that made no sense. 30 Imperial vessels destroyed or heavily damaged by what should have been defenseless primitives. His beautiful, efficient conquest had turned into a grinding battle of attrition against enemies who refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. "Sir," his communications officer reported with barely concealed fear, "Fleet Command is requesting a status update. They expected the system to be secured by now." Corvesh looked at the tactical display showing human debris mixed with the wreckage of his own ships. These weren't the primitive, easily cowed species the Empire usually encountered. These humans fought like cornered animals, and they were making the Empire pay in blood for every kilometer of space. The reinforcement fleet that arrived 3 days later was massive. 500 additional Imperial warships led by Admiral Zalketh aboard the super dreadnought Galaxy's Fury. The vessel was a monument to Imperial power, stretching 4 kilometers from bow to stern, bristling with enough firepower to reduce planets to rubble. Zalketh had come, expecting to clean up Corvesh's mess and find a conquered solar system. Instead, he found a war zone. "What is the meaning of this?" Zalketh demanded, as his flagship took position near Jupiter. The tactical displays showed something unprecedented. Imperial ships locked in fierce combat with primitive human vessels throughout the solar system. "These creatures should have surrendered days ago," Admiral Lee Hyun-woo watched the new arrivals. From his command ship, the converted battlecruiser Busan Rising, hidden in the shadow of one of Saturn's moons. For 6 months before the invasion, he had been preparing for this moment, studying every piece of intelligence humanity had gathered about potential alien threats. His engineers had worked around the clock, turning human ingenuity into devastating weapons. In the wreckage fields of the asteroid belt, Commander Yoon Hae-jin crawled through the twisted remains of an Imperial scout ship. The vessel had been crippled by mining charges 2 days earlier, its crew killed in the explosion. But the technology inside was intact, and Yoon was humanity's leading expert on alien systems. "Control, this is Salvage Team 7, she reported, her voice crackling through the comm system. "I've accessed their shield generators. These idiots use the same frequency modulation across their entire fleet. It's like they've never heard of adaptive technology." Back on the Busan Rising, Chief Engineer Park Tae-sung received the data transmission and immediately began running calculations. Within hours, he had developed 17 different methods to disrupt Imperial shields. Some used electromagnetic pulses, others exploited harmonic frequencies, and a few simply overloaded the generators with focused energy bursts. "Admiral," Park reported with barely contained excitement, "we can turn their own shields against them. Watch this." On the tactical display, he showed how human ships could use modified mining lasers to create resonance cascades in Imperial shield matrices. Their shields will collapse from the inside out. The aliens quickly discovered that humans didn't follow the civilized rules of warfare. Traditional military doctrine called for fleet engagements in open space, with clearly defined battle lines and honorable combat. Humans ignored all of that completely. Captain Lee Soo-jin commanded a flotilla of converted cargo freighters that had been transformed into the most annoying weapons in human space. Her ships, nicknamed Ghost Squadron, struck Imperial supply convoys in the outer system before vanishing into the asteroid fields or behind planetary bodies. The freighters looked harmless on sensors, but each one carried enough firepower to cripple a destroyer. "Control, this is Ghost Leader, Soo-jin," transmitted as her squadron emerged from behind Europa's trailing asteroid cluster. An Imperial supply convoy, protected by 6 escort frigates, was moving toward the main battle fleet. "We have targets of opportunity, beginning attack run." Her ships accelerated from their hiding spots, using the gravitational pull of Jupiter's moons to slingshot toward the enemy convoy. The Imperial escorts detected them too late. By the time their weapons came online, the human ships were already among them, firing mining charges and improvised missiles at point-blank range. "They expect us to fight like civilized beings," Soo-jin told her pilots as they tore through the convoy, destroying supply ships filled with ammunition and fuel. "Too bad we're human." The most terrifying aspect of human warfare, from the Empire's perspective, was their ability to adapt and improve captured technology. What should have taken months of careful study, human engineers accomplished in hours through a combination of desperation, creativity, and complete disregard for safety protocols. In a secret facility on Mars, Dr. Kim Jong-soo led a team of engineers who had been working non-stop since the first Imperial wreckage had been recovered. The lab looked like a mad scientist's workshop, alien technology mixed with human tools, energy conduits jury-rigged with Earth components, and weapons that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. "We've improved their plasma cannons by 40%. Dr. Kim reported to Admiral Hyun-woo during their daily briefing. "Turns out their power coupling systems are incredibly inefficient. We've also figured out how to make their missiles track multiple targets simultaneously." The results were devastating. Human ships began mounting captured Imperial weapons that were deadlier than anything the Empire had ever seen. Plasma cannons that fired faster and hit harder, shield generators that could adapt to different attack frequencies, and missile systems that could overwhelm enemy defenses through sheer volume of fire. Commander Korvesh received reports of the modified weapons with growing horror. His own technology was being used against him, improved in ways that should have been impossible. A human destroyer, mounting captured Imperial plasma cannons, had just destroyed 2 of his cruisers in a matter of minutes. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of his science officer. a brilliant Kethavar named Nulveth who had spent centuries studying alien technology. "Sir, they're not following proper research protocols," Nulveth replied, his voice filled with academic outrage. "They're combining technologies that shouldn't work together, ignoring safety margins and making modifications without proper testing. It's completely reckless." "But it's working," Corvesh pointed out grimly. "The humans had turned the entire solar system into a weapon. They used asteroid fields as cover, gravitational wells to accelerate their ships, and even solar radiation as a tactical advantage. Human vessels would hide in the corona of the sun, using the intense energy to mask their signatures before emerging to strike at Imperial formations. Captain Oh Seong-hwan commanded a small squadron of fighters that had been modified with heat-resistant armor plating. His pilots, nicknamed the Solar Hawks, would dive into the sun's outer atmosphere and use the massive star's gravitational field to achieve incredible speeds before attacking Imperial capital ships. "Solar Control, this is Hawk Leader," he transmitted, as his squadron prepared for another sundive attack. "Beginning approach run. We'll hit their flagship and be gone before they know what happened." The Imperial bridge crews watched in amazement as human fighters emerged from solar plasma, moving at nearly 20% of light speed. Their weapons, supercharged by stellar radiation, could punch through Imperial armor like it was paper. Admiral Zalkith found himself facing an enemy unlike anything in Imperial experience. These humans fought with the fury of a cornered species, using every advantage their home system provided. They turned mining equipment into weapons, cargo ships into missiles, and even their own sun into a tactical asset. "Sir," his tactical officer reported with barely controlled panic, "we're losing ships faster than we can replace them. The humans are using our own weapons against us and somehow making them better." Zalketh stared at the tactical display showing Imperial wreckage scattered throughout the solar system. These weren't the primitive, easily conquered species the Empire usually encountered. These humans were apex predators, and they were making the galaxy's most powerful military force pay dearly for every meter of space. The war was far from over, but already the Empire was learning a terrible lesson: never awaken sleeping monsters. The Imperial command ship, Nexus Prime, had been the pride of the Third Battle Fleet, a kilometer-long vessel packed with the Empire's most advanced technology and strategic intelligence. Now it drifted powerless in the asteroid belt, its hull breached in 17 places, emergency lights flickering weakly through shattered viewports. The human boarding assault that captured it had been a masterpiece of coordinated violence that would haunt Imperial military academies for generations. Lieutenant Park Jun-seo crawled through the ship's twisted corridors, his engineering suit's headlamp cutting through the darkness. At 26, he was the youngest senior engineer on Titan Station, but his understanding of alien technology had made him invaluable to humanity's war effort. He had been working for 72 hours straight, surviving on stimulants and pure determination. "Admiral, you need to see this," he transmitted to the Busan Rising, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. Around him, the command ship's bridge was a treasure trove of Imperial secrets. Star charts showing the Empire's territory, tactical databases containing the specifications of every alien warship class, and most importantly, the technical blueprints. For their most advanced weapons, Admiral Hyun-woo's holographic image flickered to life beside Park's workstation. "What have you found, Lieutenant?" Park gestured to the plasma cannon schematics displayed on his portable scanner. "Sir, their plasma containment technology is incredible, decades beyond anything we've developed. But look at this." He highlighted the targeting system specifications. "Their computers are running predictive algorithms that are actually slower than our basic targeting programs. It's like they've focused all their advancement on raw power and completely ignored accuracy." The discovery was revolutionary. Imperial plasma cannons could generate enough energy to vaporize a city block, but they relied on massive, slow-moving targeting computers that took precious seconds to lock onto agile targets. Human engineers, working with salvaged components, began creating hybrid weapons that combined alien firepower with human precision. In the ship's armory, Sergeant Kim Tae-young examined captured Imperial combat armor with professional interest. The alien gear was impressive, energy-absorbing plates, integrated life support systems, and personal shield generators that could stop most conventional weapons. But it was designed for the Empire's standard combat doctrine, formal battles between military units in open terrain. "Look at this," Tae-young told his assault team as they prepared for their next boarding operation. He held up a piece of Imperial armor that had been torn apart by human weapons. "Beautiful engineering, but they've never faced someone willing to crawl through ventilation shafts with a bag of homemade explosives." The boarding assault on the Stellar Dominion, an Imperial battlecruiser, demonstrated exactly what Tae-young meant. While the aliens expected human marines to attack through airlocks and docking ports, Tae-young's team used mining charges to blast their way through the ship's hull in 12 different locations simultaneously. They poured through the breaches, carrying weapons that would have been banned by every civilized military code in the galaxy. Corporal Lee Min-soo led the charge through the ship's main corridor, carrying a weapon that had started life as a plasma torch for cutting through asteroid rock. Human engineers had modified it into something that could slice through Imperial armor, like butter. Behind him, Private Yoon Soo-jin carried bandoliers of grenades made from mining explosives wrapped around chunks of radioactive material from damaged reactors. "Remember," Tae-young transmitted to his teams as they fought their way toward the bridge, "they're wearing fancy armor, but it can't protect them from creativity. Use the environment against them." The aliens discovered that humans were terrifyingly adaptable in close combat. When conventional weapons failed, humans improvised. Ship repair tools became deadly weapons. Maintenance access tunnels became attack routes. Even the artificial gravity systems could be weaponized. Human engineers would overload gravity generators to create crushing forces that could flatten Imperial soldiers in their armor. Captain Oh Min-jung commanded the destroyer Incheon Fury, one of the first human ships to be completely refitted with captured Imperial technology. Her weapons officer, Lieutenant Choi Hee-rim, had spent weeks learning to operate alien plasma cannons and missile systems, but the real breakthrough came when they started modifying the weapons in ways their original designers never intended. "Load the gravity bombs with radioactive waste," Oh Min-jung ordered, as her ship prepared to engage an Imperial cruiser. The gravity bombs were elegant Imperial weapons designed to create localized gravitational distortions that could crush enemy vessels. Humans had filled them with radioactive debris from damaged power plants, turning them into weapons that would contaminate everything they touched. "Captain, that violates about 16 different galactic warfare conventions," Lieutenant Choi pointed out. "We never signed those conventions," Oh Min-jung replied with grim satisfaction. "Fire when ready." The modified gravity bomb struck the Imperial cruiser's shields and detonated, creating a gravitational vortex filled with highly radioactive particles. The ship's shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, became a trap that concentrated the radioactive material around the vessel. Within minutes, the crew was receiving lethal doses of radiation, and the ship drifted powerless as its systems failed. Throughout the solar system, similar scenes played out as humans revealed the true scope of their capacity for violence. The Empire had conquered hundreds of species, but they had all been civilized races that followed accepted rules of warfare. Humans followed no rules except victory at any cost. Engineer Kim Sung-ho, working in a converted mining facility on Ceres, had turned the asteroid's processing equipment into a weapon production line. He was mass-producing missiles filled with human innovations that would have horrified military ethicists across the galaxy. Some contained corrosive chemicals that ate through Imperial armor. Others carried electromagnetic pulse generators that fried alien electronics. The most terrifying were loaded with nanobots programmed to disassemble enemy ships at the molecular level. "We're not just fighting a war," Kim explained to his team as they worked around the clock. "We're showing the galaxy what happens when you threaten human civilization. Every weapon we build needs to make them wish they'd never heard of Earth." The psychological impact on Imperial forces was devastating. These weren't the desperate last stands of a dying species that the Empire was accustomed to crushing. These were calculated, efficient, and utterly ruthless military operations conducted by creatures who seemed to view warfare as a natural state of existence. Commander Korvesh found himself trapped in a nightmare of human ingenuity. Every day brought new horrors, human ships mounting weapons that combined Imperial technology with human improvements, human fighters using tactics that defied military logic, and human soldiers who fought with a ferocity that terrified seasoned veterans of galactic conquest. His final transmission to Imperial Command was a desperate plea that would change how the Empire viewed humanity forever. Command, this is Fleet Commander Corvesh. Request immediate reinforcement of all remaining battle groups in this sector. The humans are not a primitive species. They are apex predators who have spent their entire evolutionary history perfecting the art of killing. They don't fight to win battles. They fight to make us pay in blood for every meter of space we take from them. The transmission included tactical recordings that would become required viewing at Imperial military academies. Humans using their own sun as a weapon, converting civilian infrastructure into military assets, and modifying captured alien technology in ways that improved its effectiveness beyond Imperial specifications. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "Command is requesting clarification on your threat assessment." Corvesh looked at the tactical display, showing the wreckage of what had once been the galaxy's most powerful fleet, now scattered throughout human space like debris from a cosmic disaster. "Tell them we've awakened something that should have been left sleeping." The final Imperial armada that assembled at the edge of Earth's solar system was the largest military force in galactic history. Supreme Admiral Vexcalar commanded over 2,000 warships, including 12 super dreadnoughts each, the size of a small city. The fleet stretched across space like a metallic constellation, bristling with enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. This wasn't just an invasion force, it was the Empire's answer to the humiliation they had suffered at human hands. "Today we end this embarrassment," Vexcalar declared from the bridge of his flagship, the Universal Dominion. The massive vessel was a monument to Imperial engineering, its quantum cannons capable of cracking planets, and its shields strong enough to withstand the explosion of a star. These primitive creatures have made a mockery of Imperial might for too long. Earth hung before them like a blue jewel, seemingly defenseless against the approaching tsunami of destruction. But Admiral Lee Hyunwoo, standing on the bridge of his rebuilt flagship Incheon, knew better. Humanity had spent every day since the war began preparing for this moment. "All stations, this is Admiral Hyunwoo," he transmitted to the desperate fleet of human vessels scattered throughout the inner solar system. The ships looked pathetic compared to the Imperial Armada. Converted cargo haulers, mining vessels with jury-rigged weapons, military ships held together by emergency repairs, and human stubbornness. Today we show them what it means to threaten our home. Every human who has ever lived, every dream we've ever had, every child sleeping on Earth tonight, they're all counting on us. The human fleet numbered barely 300 vessels, outnumbered 7-1 by an enemy with vastly superior technology. But those ships carried something no Imperial computer could calculate, the desperate fury of a species fighting for its very existence. Captain Seo Jae-hoon piloted his modified fighter, the Soul Ghost, through the chaotic space between massive capital ships. His squadron, nicknamed the Earth's Last Hope, consisted of fighters built from salvaged parts and powered by engines that should have exploded under the stress they endured. But they flew anyway, carried by pilots who had nothing left to lose. Ghost. "Squadron, this is lead," Seo transmitted, as Imperial dreadnoughts moved into bombardment position above Earth. "Target their command vessels. We may not survive this, but we're going to make them remember this day for the rest of their miserable lives." The battle erupted across the solar system with a violence that shook the fabric of space itself. Imperial plasma cannons, each one capable of boiling oceans, fired at human positions while human ships responded with weapons that violated every known law of physics and military ethics. Modified gravity bombs, filled with radioactive waste, created contaminated zones that crippled Imperial formations. Human missiles packed with nanobots designed to eat through alien hulls turned proud Imperial cruisers into floating scrapyards. Commander Park So-jin, leading a squadron of converted mining ships, watched her tactical display fill with enemy Contacts. Her vessels, originally designed to extract ore from asteroids, had been transformed into something the galaxy had never seen, mobile weapons platforms that could appear anywhere in the solar system without warning. "Mining Fleet 7 to all units," she transmitted as her ships emerged from behind Mars. "We've got Imperial supply convoys moving toward Earth. Time to show them what human miners do to obstacles." Her ships, equipped with industrial equipment, turned into weapons of war, tore through the enemy formation like a chainsaw through silk. The Imperial casualties mounted at a horrifying rate. Every human ship that died took multiple Imperial vessels with it, often through tactics so brutal that veteran alien commanders struggled to comprehend them. Human vessels would ram Imperial dreadnoughts while broadcasting final messages to their families. Mining charges, meant for asteroid excavation, became suicide weapons that could crack open the hulls of ships designed to withstand planetary bombardments. Lieutenant Colonel Kim Hae-won commanded the lunar defense platforms, massive installations that had been built into moon craters and reinforced with every piece of military hardware humanity could manufacture. When Imperial forces moved to eliminate the platforms, they discovered that humans had turned Earth's moon into a fortress that could fight back. "Lunar control to all platforms," Kim transmitted, as Imperial fighters swarmed toward their positions. "Weapons free. Make every shot count. We're not just defending Luna, we're defending every human dream that ever looked up at these stars." The lunar platforms unleashed a storm of fire that turned the space around Earth's moon into a graveyard of burning ships. Railguns, plasma cannons salvaged from Imperial wreckage, and weapons that existed nowhere else in the galaxy spoke with one voice, the voice of human defiance. But the Imperial numbers were overwhelming. One by one, human ships fell to superior firepower. The Soul Ghost exploded while ramming an Imperial command cruiser. Mining Station Luna 7 went dark after taking fire from 6 different dreadnoughts. The human fleet was dying, taking impossible numbers of enemies with them, but dying nonetheless. Admiral Hyun-woo watched his tactical display as the last human defense lines crumbled. Earth lay exposed, its blue surface reflecting the fires of burning ships. In orbit above the planet, millions of humans looked up at the battle knowing they were witnessing humanity's final hour. "Admiral," reported Commander Yoon Tae-ho from the engineering station, "all Helios stations are reporting ready status. The solar engineering network is fully charged and awaiting your command." Hyun-woo closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of his daughter sleeping in Seoul, his parents who had taught him to love the stars, and every human who had ever dreamed of walking among them. When he opened his eyes, they burned with the fire of a dying star. "All stations, all ships, all human souls still fighting," he transmitted on every frequency. "This is Admiral Hyun-woo. We've shown them what humans can do when pushed to the edge. Now let's show them what happens when they threaten our home. Activate Helios Protocol." Throughout the solar system, hidden installations that had been built over months of desperate preparation came online. Massive solar collectors, engineering platforms, and quantum field generators that had been carefully positioned around the sun itself began their deadly work. The star that had given life to humanity for billions of years became humanity's ultimate weapon. The sun's surface erupted with directed plasma streams that turned the vacuum of space into channels of stellar fire. The energy burst, focused through quantum lenses and gravitational field manipulators, struck the Imperial fleet with the power of a solar flare concentrated into a weapon of unimaginable destruction. Imperial shields designed to withstand planet killing. Weapons simply ceased to exist under the assault of concentrated stellar plasma. Dreadnoughts that had conquered entire star systems vaporized instantly. Smaller vessels were torn apart by gravitational forces that exceeded anything in their design parameters. Supreme Admiral Vexcalar watched his fleet die in moments, his instruments showing energy readings that exceeded the measurement capacity of Imperial sensors. "Retreat!" he screamed into his communications system. "All vessels, emergency jump to hyperspace, now!" Less than 200 Imperial ships escaped from the solar system, their hulls scarred by stellar fire, and their crews traumatized by witnessing the impossible. The mighty Galactic Empire had been broken by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Commander Korvesh, one of the few survivors, transmitted his final report to Imperial Command from his crippled destroyer as it limped away from human space. "Command, this is Commander Corvesh. Reclassify humans as Class X extinction event. Recommend immediate border adjustment, minimum 5 sectors from human space. They are not like other species we have encountered. They are apex predators who have weaponized their own star. Do not engage. Do not approach their territory. Do not give them any reason to expand beyond their current borders." 6 months later, the galactic community received humanity's first official diplomatic transmission, broadcast on every frequency used by spacefaring civilizations. The message was simple, direct, and terrifying in its implications. "This is Earth calling all spacefaring species. Humanity is open to diplomatic relations with peaceful civilizations. Our terms are simple: mutual respect, non-interference with human space, and recognition of our right to exist. We have no desire for conquest, but we will defend ourselves with every means at our disposal. We will be expanding our territory to secure resources and living space for our growing population. We suggest you choose your response to our expansion. Carefully. We hope for peace, but we are prepared for war." The galaxy had awakened something that should have been left sleeping. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, not as subjects or victims, but as apex predators who had turned the very cosmos into their weapon. The age of easy imperial conquest was over. The Empire learned too late that some sleeping giants should never be disturbed. The end.